I'm Josh with Skid Pro. Today we're going to take a look at our heavy-duty tree puller. Tree puller is a great tool because it allows you to uproot and get everything, get the roots and all, and not have to deal with any stumps. I think that's one of the reasons it's such a popular attachment. It's also relatively inexpensive. A lot of different uses, from pulling and preparing for food plots to residential and landscape use, you name it. A lot of areas where this can be just a really valuable tool. So where do we start when we talk about quality of attachment? You know, we usually start with frame, weight, and strength, right? That's the backbone at Skid Pro Attachments. That's what we want to look at here. The frame of it, if you look here, we got 4x4 square tubing here on the bottom and then running vertically on each side. So our frame is all tied together really strong. It's a high tensile tube. It's a thick wall tube. Again, very strong. The next part that we need to look at then is, do we transition that strength from the frame to the jaws? Well, that's, I think, one of the areas that really separates our puller over a lot of them on the market. A lot of them come down with just a small jaw, one-sided, you know, half-inch jaw. There's not a lot of gusseting, there's not a lot of support. They're sitting out there. If you pull too hard on a tree, you're going to end up bending them. That's really where ours shines. If you look at here, everything on this jaw is half-inch plate minimum. So our gusset starts all the way to the top. This is our solid jaw. That solid jaw, of course, doesn't move. It's welded to the frame of the puller. You can see here we've got a full gusset that runs the length of the jaw and comes out at about a 30-degree angle here, and that ties in both with the vertical 4x4 tube but also this end plate as well. Then the other jaw, this is of course our movable jaw. This one, again, look at the difference here. Most companies just run this one jaw down here. There's no gusset at all. We pull all the way from the top. We support that entire jaw, and we put a pivot pin right here. It's an oversized 1.25" pivot pin, the same pivot pin we use on our grapples actually. Probably a little overkill, but it gives a lot more strength, and it allows us to tie that gusset all the way to the top. And so this is reinforced all the way through with that half-inch high tensile 60,000 plate. Notice on the jaw itself we have double pivot pins. They're both greasable. We use 1.25" on both of those. Again, that oversized pivot pin. Our jaw is much heavier than the competition, but this is the specific detail that makes it heads and tails above other jaws, other pullers on the market from a strength standpoint. I told you before, most of them just have one jaw and it comes together, grips a tree, and that's it, you pull it out. But the problem is, where's the strength in that? There's a lot of downward torque. I mean, we got big track loaders and skid steers. When you're pulling a big tree, as you'll see on the video, you're rocking back and forth and pulling up and moving side to side, and you're wiggling those roots loose. That's a tremendous amount of torque on those jaws. That's why we run a half box design on each side, so it comes together and it makes that fully boxed jaw. Not only is it half-inch jaw on top and half-inch jaw on the bottom, so you're sitting at about a full inch of surface area. It gives you more surface area to grip smaller trees, gives you more strength on larger trees, makes all the world of difference. Never have we had any issues with a bent jaw, ever. And I guarantee on those lighter ones, that's a real concern. A lot of times I think the details are also what really make the difference in an attachment. Yes, our jaw is heads and tails above most of the competition, but I like this here. You can see we run an industrial cylinder, 1.5" rod, 2.5" bore. We run inch pivot pins on the cylinder themselves, greasable here, but we fully box this. This is 360 degrees. It's a double sleeve, so as it opens and closes, that cylinder is always protected. Not only does the 360-degree cylinder cover protect the cylinder, it also protects the fitting and the hoses. You can see the full protected hose routing. All the fittings are inside that cover, protected from any damage. That's critical, obviously, when you're in there and you're in thick brush and trees and you can't see what you're doing. That cylinder is always fully protected. A lot of strength there. Just another added step, doing it right the first time. One thing I get questioned on every once in a while is, why doesn't your tree puller have a brush guard? My answer is simple: extra cost, and it doesn't do anything. And what I mean by that is, in fact, it sometimes gets in the way. Obviously, extra cost is easy to figure. If you're pulling a coniferous tree with branches extending far that you got to get through, that push bar just gets in your way and branches fold down and you can't really see what you're doing. On top of that, it really doesn't do any good, because if you pick up a tree, and even if it's leaning back towards the cab slightly, at least it allowed you, by having no brush guard, you could get in tight on the tree. You pull it up. Now simply don't let go of the tree while it's tilted back at you. Just keep the jaws closed. So what you do is then you go to your brush pile, you flip the machine, the loader arms, and tilt forward like this. And this is the time where you would drop the jaws, and then there's of course no way that that tree is going to fall back towards the skid loader or the puller itself. So on this tree shear, we rate it as an 8-inch pulling capacity. Obviously you start to get beyond that and we're talking a huge root system, and it's a pretty tough tree to pull. But even though we rate it at an 8-inch, the jaws actually open to 11 inches wide, so you can get some of those bigger, shallower rooted trees in there. The jaw is then 20 inches deep. The heavy-duty frame and gusseting on the jaw, the fully boxed jaw, and then the industrial cylinder. Those are all those real 3 key areas that make this a superior puller to what else is on the market. If you have any further questions, visit www.skidpro.com or give the guys a call, 877-378-4642, and a product guru will be there to help you out.